and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and I love to hear about winners. We've got a trophy here. We've got, oh my, do we have a story. All the way from Grants Pass. I want to welcome Ron and Connie. Welcome. You know, you've got fancy shirts on. These aren't Southern Oregon shirts.
No, these were the pit crew shirts I had made up during my drag racing events, so that my whole crew all looked the same.
And Connie, did you brag a little bit about your pit crew?
Yes, in 1982 from NHRA, we won the Best Appearing Pit Crew Award.
Pit crew for what? I know about racing.
Motorcycle drag racing.
Motorcycle drag racing. Is this motorcycle in action?
That's in action. That's doing a burnout. That's getting ready to go up on the line and launch.
What's a burnout? Excuse me, Ron, but you know a language I don't know.
They do it in cars too, but in drag racing, you want to heat the tire up so it's sticky. So we get back in a puddle of water. Sometimes they'll put alcohol down also, but you run the tire, lock the front brake up, bring it up to about 11,000 RPM and just smoke the tire, which that's doing. When I let go of the front brake, that just
I mean, is this plume of smoke here all from your tire?
That's all from that tire.
My daddy said if you waste rubber, you're wasting tire life. That's well, not so.
That tire was designed to be wasted.
So. Ron, where's your interest come in fast things? When did you decide that you wanted to go faster than your feet could take you?
I can't really answer that one. All I can say is I've been riding motorcycles and Cushman scooters since I was about 9 or 10. And then as I got up in my older age and I got onto motorcycles, I think when I was 14, I was actually riding an Ariel Square 4, which is a pretty good sized motorcycle.
Did you reach the pedal? Oh, there's not a pedal.
Well, just almost.
When you said you had a Cushman, weren't those little
Cushman scooter.
About this big?
Yeah, the seat, the actual height is quite low. That's the reason most little guys like me usually acquired one or had one available to ride, because you could sit on the seat and still touch the ground.
Okay, Ron, so. You just brought up a curious point. Why do you say a little guy like you?
Well, probably because I am. I'm 5'5" right now. When I was in high school, let's say I was 4'11". A freshman in high school, I was 87 pounds. So I was quite small all my life.
Well, does that, I know jockeys, Bob Black told me that he was kind of like put on the horse and said, you're the right size, now be a horse racer. Does that have anything to do with your success?
No, I don't. Well, the guys I race against say it does, because I race against guys that are up to twice my size, twice my weight. And they actually say it's unfair. They say we put bikes in classes by their size, by their weight, by their motor distribution. They think riders should be qualified in there too, which I don't know.
Well, I know that a jockey tries to keep his weight down, but you're not a young man. You're not doing racing right now.
No, I'm not, no.
But you've kept it.
Kept my weight right there, yeah. Yeah.
So you're at 140. Oh. Sounds good. Sounds good, doesn't it? But let's start with way back when, before you were on Cushman even. Where was it that you grew up?
I actually grew up, I was born in Berrien Springs, Michigan. My father passed away in a car accident when I was 4. Then we moved to Oregon when I was about 6. And so I was raised in Grants Pass, Oregon.
Oh, I do know.
That's where I grew up.
North Bend.
I'm sorry. I grew up in North Bend, Oregon, over on the coast. Right, yeah.
And you went quite a distance to find this bride, right?
3 miles.
Well, actually, I went all over Southern California. I left high school, went to California, worked as assistant manager for the theater down there, plowed around, got ill again because my health was bad in the younger days, and came back home and saw her working at a drive-in theater, and she kept turning me down. She wouldn't go out with me.
Well, shall we just check in with Connie? Where is this that you grew up?
I grew up in Empire, Oregon, but I went to high school at Marshville High in Coos Bay.
Why didn't you go to Empire?
We did not have a high school.
I guess I should have known that. Connie, you're in class of what?
1959.
Oh my, look at the cars in 1959. And did we decide that this was a Nash, or did we decide that was a
Hudson?
I think it's a Nash. We'll surely get a phone call that says 1959. But back then, why was this the big Oregon or bust era?
That was our 100th year as statehood. We celebrated the 100th year anniversary.
And what did you do over there to celebrate?
They grew beards. They looked like pioneers. They had jails set up. If you weren't dressed right, you got put in the jail, and someone had to come bail you out. They just had a lot of fun time with it.
And here we are, 50 years later.
100. 50 years later, yes.
Celebrating our 150th year. But this is all about, what's this word?
Mahiscan. It's Marshville High School Annual.
Oh, of course. Well, it looks like maybe it's a pirate.
And we were pirates.
You were. And what were you over at Coos Bay?
Over in North Bend, we were the Bulldogs.
Excuse me?
Vicious, mean bulldogs, all of us.
Were you involved in sports there? Or
I signed up in wrestling my freshman year because of my size and my weight. The coach wanted me to be a flyweight contender. So I signed up with him, and he worked with me. I had 2 matches. Usually matches are counted by time in and time out. Mine was by seconds. I could pin a guy in 3 to 5 seconds.
I don't want to get in a fight with this guy, do you? So let's say, I keep thinking when I was a kid, they called that town Marshfield.
They did.
Somebody didn't like that, huh?
I think it was around 1942 they changed the name of the town to Coos Bay, or later maybe, I'm not sure.
That whole area was famous, or should we say important, during World War II. Did you ever hear stories of blackouts or things that were going on over there just because it was a port, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I remember of it, the Coos Bay port, that was the world's largest export of lumber went out of that port from Coos Bay.
Probably lumber from all over southern Oregon.
Lumber went everywhere, yeah.
And then came the war, and shipping stopped like that. I guess lots of just commercial ships were taken over as war vessels. Any stories about how things were over there, rationing and hard times?
Myself, I actually don't remember. I remember back in those days that was hard times for everyone because work was hard to get, pay wasn't very high. That's really all I remember about it.
Well, I know that we had those ration books. See, I'm a little older than you, so I have to kind of, you have, let's just jump into what the Ron Knapp poster's all about. This is Yamaha. When you know
how they're built.
And this guy's name is?
The guy riding that bike is me.
I thought
Ron Knapp.
Maybe that was why it was here. What were you doing?
That was a brand new model that Yamaha bought in from the factory. They asked me to come in out of the field and run it at Irwindale, and running it, that was the first factory street motorcycle to break into the 11-second bracket in the quarter mile. And I was out there most of the day with the crew that they sent out with me. And finally, 2 of the little Japanese engineers that was there with us, I asked them to make a call and find out where the torque RPM range was on the motor.
Now that means the upper limit?
The torque would be a lower RPM where you have the full torque. Horsepower RPM is usually higher.
Okay.
And so I wanted to come off the line on the torque power rather than the horsepower range. And when he came back and told me what the RPM range was, I launched off the line and got into the 11-second bracket. I did it twice. So we actually ran 11.97 for the elapsed time.
And you're talking a quarter?
Quarter of a mile. And the bike was doing wheelies. Every time I grabbed a gear, it was up in the air. They had trucks, pickups out there with film crews. They filmed the whole thing. All the commercials for that bike were made that day. So it was fun.
Because there's just almost every place I look here, Ron, how do you, are you so fortunate to have all these papers, all these cuttings? Do you know where these all came from?
Yes, I did not have a scrapbook, but just had pictures all over. And Ron's mother, every time something happened, I would send her a clipping of it or a newspaper or magazine or whatever. And just before she passed away, she gave us a whole folder with everything in it.
Oh, Mom.
So we were...
So a lot of this stuff actually was returned back to us from my mom then.
Oh, Moms, yeah. I hope you're all listening to us today because, you know things that your kids are going to love. These are priceless. Priceless. Although I know that this is not one of those priceless ones because you made this right for me, didn't you? Off of a Xerox machine?
Yeah, that was a copy.
Talk about high tech. This rig, I love your uniform.
Oh, my leathers.
Oh, tell me about your, I call it uniform. Forgive me, I don't know your language.
We call them leathers, racing leathers, and I was sponsored, the leathers are sponsored by ITT Credit Corporation. They actually paid for the leathers, which cost $620.
Those are big round dollars in 19 and what?
About 1978.
78, yeah.
Okay,
and they paid for the leathers, and the gal was so impressed because I had this all out in color with all the stars on it and everything on the diagram. And she was so impressed with it that she actually took my jacket and filled it with the silk lining from Evel Knievel's Private Roll.
Oh.
And there's $140 worth of stars on there, too.
Speaking of Evel Knievel, we've all heard the name. We've all heard of his antics, and we know there's a lot of motorcycle antics, and quite often they end up in a puddle, right?
He was quite a guy.
Had you met him?
Yeah. I was, Las Vegas was my sales territory with Yamaha Motor. I was the district sales manager with Yamaha. I ran all of Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, El Paso, Texas, and Las Vegas, Nevada. And I met him up there. He was up there doing one of his surveys as to making one of his jumps. And that's when I met him. And that's when I thanked him for the silk that was in my jacket.
Well, now, what's the outside when you said leathers?
Yeah, it's just all leather.
I like even the arrow on the fan.
Well, I figured that was my design too, to keep this end down. It worked.
Well, okay, I've got to ask you, did you ever...
I had the cuffs up here. I had the Lancer type collar instead of the small collar. I had the big collar on it. They were really nice looking leathers.
I was kind of hoping you'd wear them in for this show.
Well, somebody, after we moved here, a couple of years after I moved here, came by a house. We were having a neighborhood garage sale, and I had my leathers hanging out there, and he bought them. And supposedly there's someplace in a museum, and I'm not sure where. I haven't heard from the guy since he bought them. My motorcycle's supposed to be in this one, and my 350, the one I built before this, is supposed to be in a museum back east someplace.
Now you say built. That's interesting. These aren't what you'd call stock, off the assembly line Yamahas.
Far, far from it.
Well, what's the deal?
The frame on this one here is designed totally of triangular concept, which is the strongest concept there is.
Sure.
So the chromoly tubing is only 40 thousandths wall thickness, and yeah.
That's less than a hair's breadth, isn't it?
Close.
Close. Okay.
And I was built by a chassis builder in Hemet, California. I took all the drawings to him, and he built it. The motor I got from Yamaha, it was a 4-cylinder, water-cooled 2-stroke engine. It had produced 77 horsepower when I got it. When they finished with it, it produced 151 on gas. So that's a strong motor.
Some of these words sound a little familiar because I'm from Martin Studebaker, and that's what this fancy shirt's all about. I gotta wear it. But you talked about this is not your first bike, right?
No.
Nor was that little scooter.
No.
How many bikes has a guy like you had, and what's your wife thought of that?
Well, let's see, in drag racing, I started off, I've been through 8 drag bikes.
And wrecked how many of them?
No, actually, I dropped this one when he made the chassis. The head angle was off 1/2 a degree. And the first time I was out at Orange County Raceway doing a practice run, I dropped the clutch because the head was off. The back kept trying to pass the front. So you do that English with the front end anyway. It just threw me down, and away I went.
And so got up to tell the story.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you know, here in Southern Oregon and Northern California, there are lots of conventions. And when I see a whole bunch of motorcycles coming through town, I think they're having a lot of fun. Did you ever go to one of those rallies?
No, I didn't. I was really not involved in street riding. I always thought that was unsafe.
Oh, okay. Top mileage, top miles per hour.
Top miles per hour on that one, record is 149.51 miles an hour.
That's fast.
In a 1/4 mile for a 750cc.
And is that the fastest you ever moved?
That's the fastest I've gone on that, yes. That's the fastest I've gone.
On gas, too.
Huh?
On gas.
Yeah, that's on gas, yes.
Well, did you ever race in the desert? I mean, is this a...
Did desert riding. The world's longest overland cross-country race was the Barcelona Vegas run. And people made fun of me because I was involved in drag racing. They said, you know, come on, Knapp, come out here and run the desert. So I did. Took me 3 years to finish that run because I had a flat tire on one. I had a coil go out on the second one. The 3rd year, I just flew through it. I came in at 600 and something out of 2,000 starters. So, yeah, it was grueling.
You proved you could do it.
I could do it.
Now, Connie, have you been on motorcycles?
Yes, I desert rode.
Oh, you did?
We were camping and riding motorcycles in the desert.
Well, I did see a picture of you here, and I thought,
and I did some street riding, but I didn't like it either. I don't like the cars.
Thank you. You know, the cars have trouble seeing them two-wheelers.
They do. They can look at you and not see you. That's happened to me a lot of times when I'm on the highway.
Now, you drive up and down your street on an unusual rig, and I got to sit in it.
That's right.
Sit. What is it?
That's a car. That is not a trike.
Why do you call this? I mean, it's got 3 wheels. Obviously, it's a 3-wheeled motorized
vehicle.
But I can't say trike because what's the difference?
Okay, a trike is set up like a tricycle. You have 2 wheels in back, 1 in front. You can build a trike with a Chevy 327 engine sitting in it, and it's still a trike. If you're on a helmet law for motorcycles, you have to wear a helmet to ride a trike. This is an automobile. It passes the ruling as an automobile because of the wheel configuration.
The wheels?
2 wheels in front, 1 wheel in back.
The funny story about the fact that not every policeman can tell the difference between a trike and a motorized vehicle. They see 3 wheels and they think... Exactly.
That's what they see. They see 3 wheels and that's all they see. So they pulled me over because I didn't have a helmet on because California was a helmet state. And so I gave them the 6 or 7 different code numbers. They looked it up in their handbook, which told them that that was an automobile. And so that went great until the last guy that pulled me over said, yes, he agreed. And he says, where's your seatbelt? Ta-da!
On a motorcycle, you don't need a seatbelt.
No, you don't want one.
But you've just proved beyond a shadow and a doubt you're not a motorcycle and you are not in compliance, right?
That's right.
Right.
What happened next?
He says, I'll be here at this same time tomorrow night. I just came off the freeway. I'm off duty. He says, come back here with your car with the seatbelt attached to the frame. And I was there the next night with the seatbelt on.
Oh, now how do you find a seatbelt?
Go to a wrecking yard, some of the smaller vehicles, little import cars, they had a seatbelt that was just the right size. And the one I have now, which that picture there is the current one I have right now here in town, I ordered the seatbelt out of a catalog that has parts for ride lawnmowers, and that's an actual retractable seatbelt. So that's what's on the one I have right now.
And I got to ride.
Yes.
I got to sit in it.
We have a picture of you on it.
Yeah. Let's talk the rest of the family, because this kid looks like you.
That's my boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the story?
Dean they took the picture for the front of this brochure showing him in a dealership. Then as you open it up, it'll show him coming over a jump out in the high desert on a bicycle that Yamaha came out with called the Moto bike, because it has front and rear suspension, just like a motorcycle. And so that was the commercial they did with him. That was the advertising we sent out to the dealers with him on it then.
You know, I was telling Ron that when our daughter was young, my dad was the dealer at Datsun's here in Southern Oregon, Northern California, and he got the bright idea, or my brother, that they should do some kid commercials, and we'd never seen a one, because that was 1963.
Oh.
And he said, well, now, you can be the Datsun dolly,
Right.
and you can show us how many dollies you can put in a Datsun. And she went to Medford, KBOY, I think it was called then. It was the first station. Now it's 56 years old or something. And she was a Datsun dolly. How many dollies where can you find a Datsun? And he said, at Grampy Martin's in Grants Pass. Well, that year she died in a car wreck that I had, and she became news all over, because now the Datsun dolly was no more. We had some, and fortunately the station gave me the footage that they had done. I so appreciated it. You got trophies. Where?
Hundreds, yes.
You got hundreds of trophies, but you didn't have very many to choose from to bring today.
I've only had 3 that I've kept.
Oh my, this is big and heavy.
Yes, it is.
Look at that motorcycle. Why did you get rid of the others? I mean,
mostly because in our family we had relatives, nieces, nephews. Everybody wanted the trophy, so I just started giving them away. Plus, I was told by someone else here that they collected dust sitting around the house, so you know we didn't need them. So
we also gave lots of boxes to the Temple Christian School in La Puente, California,
right.
And they gave them to the students. Our son was going there.
oh, so
Right.
a trophy with a little motorcycle, they might put a new plaque on that says winner of the Scholastic Award.
it worked out great.
And
then.
most of the kids wanted the motorcycles.
Aha.
And I did receive an email from one of the students the other day that he said some of his most fun times was when he was able to be Ron's pit man at the drag races.
Oh, what fun.
And
More trophies, more trophies. This one is another drag. Look at that rig. Oh, motorcycles are, that's
Well, that was a dragster, a top fuel, Don Garlis top fuel meet. That was in Deming, New Mexico.
oh, you
went
got
there.
all around.
Yeah, oh yeah, I was all over.
Connie, did you travel with the kids too?
yes, and in the early days, motorcycles ran off with the cars, and then they split them.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because there was only sanctioned bodies that did cars, but so they squeezed a spot in for the motorcycles, and then later on they came up with motorcycle-only drag racing associations. I belonged to 4 of them.
Because they had midget racers here, and then they'd also have bike races in at the same thing. You've got pictures here and pictures there. What one are we going to talk about first?
Well, you know, that one there's one I'm actually quite pleased with, because I think I was about 22, and that was my second year of drag racing, and I got the 350 World Class Championship for Oregon in my second year of racing on the 305 Honda Super Hawk.
Go ahead and brag. You
So I thought
earned
that was
it.
cool.
You earned it. Connie, you pick that one up and show anything that you love.
Well, I love the traveling in the motorhome. I love to be the camp cook, which I was called a pit boss, but that really means camp cook. And we had our motorhome and the trailer that pulled the bike, and then I think, yeah, this is the little asphalt shaker, which was our first bike. Not our first one, but it was the second to the last bike that we had.
Right.
Asphalt shaker, you mean it just moved the...
That was the name, and the last bike we had was Eagle One. Eagle One sponsored us, and the announcers at the drag races picked up Eagle One because it was painted across our fairing,
Right.
The eagle, and they named our bike Eagle One, so we
great.
kept that.
You've got all kinds of pictures over here. Any one of them you want to tell me about? I can see you've been in the news more than once or twice.
I was very fortunate. I was in, I think, every motorcycle magazine, Cycle News almost weekly, and it was a lot of coverage. It really was.
You folks wonder where I find my guests. Well, these guests were at Christian Women's Club, yes. And I, just as the speaker, and I surely appreciate you coming all the way to be on our TV show. Motorcycle racing wasn't dangerous for you.
Not for me, no.
Well, that's good to hear. And we'd encourage people to drive on the quarter mile or on the track rather than
racing on the streets.
Yeah, racing on the street does not belong. It is trouble. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you folks for being my guests.
Thank you.
I hope that we get some feedback about that Marshfield and hi. I'm Bernie Martin Beck saying thank you so much for tuning in, and happy motoring to you.